Celtics fans, I need your help badly. Our Knicks channel here at Chat Sports has surpassed us in subscribers. We got to pass them now. Go down, hit that big red sub button because the Celtics can never be finishing behind the New York Knicks. Celtics Today is sponsored by Mint Mobile. Our newest sponsor here at Chat Sports is the cell phone provider owned by famous actor Ryan Reynolds. You can go to mintmobile.com/chatsports to view their cell phone plans starting as low as $15 per month. I am Will Scott. Welcome into Celtics Today. We're talking about a pretty wild rumor that's been circulating the last couple days. That is the possibility of Isaiah Thomas coming back to Boston. He, of course, played with the C's from 2015 to 2017. Played through an injury in 2017. That was an MVP caliber season for IT. But then he was traded to the Cavs. That was a shocking trade. Didn't see it coming. Of course, that was the Kyrie Irving deal that sent Irving to Boston, IT to Cleveland. He wasn't in Cleveland for long. Finished that season with the Lakers. But he missed out on a max deal. Everyone expected him to get a max deal from the Celtics. Instead, they shipped him to Cleveland, and he just hasn't been the same player the last several years. Has been kind of a journeyman the last several seasons. So the Celtics' current roster situation, we're going to talk about this before we talk about the possibility of Thomas coming back. But they have 12 players right now in guaranteed deals, right? So that means they have 3 open roster spots. They signed Denzel Valentine, Noah Vonleh, Bruno Caboclo to training camp deals. So those guys are going to be vying for spots on the roster. Maybe you sign IT, have him come in on a camp deal, have him try to make this Celtics roster. Here's what Sports Illustrated said about the possibility of IT coming to Boston. Maybe 1 or 2 of those spots will be given to Denzel Valentine, Noah Vonleh, or Bruno Caboclo. They're talking about the open spots, all of whom have signed camp deals with the C's. But it may not be a terrible idea for them to consider signing Isaiah Thomas. This coming from Sports Illustrated. Still unsigned in free agency this offseason, there truly is no reason that Isaiah Thomas should not be on an NBA roster. To be perfectly fair, he could have had absolutely a positive impact coming off the bench for the Celtics in the NBA Finals this past season, and they still have a reason for possibly signing him with one of their final roster spots. Before we get into more, I want to hear from you down in the comments section. I want all of y'all to go down there and chime in because this is crazy. Do you want to sign Isaiah Thomas, bring IT4 back to Beantown? Type S for sign or type P for pass down in the comment section. It is the pinned comment on today's video. So when an ad break comes, go down, chime in. Do you want IT back in Boston? Sports Illustrated continued saying, Thomas is simply a winner. And on a winning team like the Celtics, who could absolutely use a great locker room presence, the veteran guard could really help be a driving force for this team to make it back to the NBA Finals. Isaiah Thomas is certainly a player that the Celtics could highly consider signing with one of their final roster spots ahead of the start of the 2022-2023 season. Before I give my thoughts, I want to tell you about our friends over at Mint Mobile because they're going to bring you unlimited data. That's number one. Number two, your service is going to switch seamlessly between 5G and 4G LTE, whatever network is the strongest. Your mom might ask you to stop calling so much because you're going to have all this unlimited data. And here's the best part. $15 per month. That's how cheap your cell phone service can be if you make the switch to Mint Mobile. I made the switch. I thought I was going to have to go to a store. I thought it was going to be complicated. It was so incredibly easy to make the switch. I did it all from the comfort of my home. They will take good care of you over at Mint Mobile. Again, that's the link. mintmobile.com/chatsports. That's going to be in the comments and the description of this video. IT certainly was a decorated player when he was with the Boston Celtics. So that 2016-2017 season was wild. Nearly 29 points per game. Was really an MVP caliber season. He finished 5th in the MVP voting that year. That was the year Russell Westbrook won it all with all those triple doubles. He was tied for the shortest all-star player ever at 5'9". Quite frankly, he's probably a generous 5'9". 53 points on his late sister's birthday. We all remember that remarkable game. And then he beat the Wizards after losing a tooth. The guy was the heart and soul of the Boston Celtics. That's what made the trade so shocking and so disappointing. Here is what he did in that MVP caliber season. Nearly 29 points per game, 5.9 rebounds per game, 2.7 rebounds per game, shot 47% from the floor. But here's what he's done since leaving Boston. And this doesn't include that 2017-18 season when he played for both the Cavs and the Lakers. Put up decent numbers, but his numbers started to go down each and every single year. And believe it or not, Thomas has played for 8 different teams since leaving the Celtics in 2017. 8 teams in 5 years, including 3 teams last year. He went back to the Lakers, so those 8 teams do include 2 stints with LA. But he went back to the Lakers, then signed a 10-day with the Mavs, and then ended up on the Hornets for the rest of the season. But the guy has certainly gotten around, hasn't been able to find really a place to call home the last couple of years. Maybe Boston, he can return home to Beantown. Was IT your favorite player when he was with Boston? I expect a lot of whys down in the comment section. Type Y for yes or type N for no. Go down, chime in. For me, it was an easy yes. I mean, IT was one of my favorite Celtics ever, really still is, and a reunion would be a lot of fun. Here's what he did last season. So 17 games played, 8.3 points per game, 1.5 assists per game, shot 40% from the floor. So decent numbers, not the same numbers that we obviously saw in Boston, but still decent numbers. And SI's right. He belongs on an NBA roster. And not to mention, he's been killing it in all these pro-ams we've been seeing. He's been playing with all these big guys like Tatum and LeBron and Paolo Banchero as well has been showing up at his pro-ams, and he's been going toe-to-toe with those guys. Fanside had said this. So SI not the only one chiming in here. Fanside had said, the Boston Celtics brought back Al Horford, then Enes Kanter, then Daniel Tice, all within Brad Stevens' first season overseeing the front office in the president of basketball operations role. At this point, Isaiah Thomas is the one major reunion remaining for Stevens and company to manifest. Thomas's meaning to the team goes beyond his current day contributions. His trade was seen as the one major mistake of the Danny Ainge era that Stevens can amend with one simple vet minimum signing. Let's look at the Celtics guard situation here. So the Celtics have 3 true point guards right now, not including J.D. Davison. And the reason I didn't include Davison is because he's on a 2-way. So Smart, Brogdon, and Pritchard are the 3 point guards. Now, granted, Smart and Brogdon might be playing some of the 2 this year, or so is Pritchard, but those are the 3 point guards. Then you have Jaylen Brown and Derrick White kind of rounding out the guards list on this Celtics team. Again, they have Davison, but he's on a 2-way deal, the Celtics draft pick from this past draft. I think the Celtics had a chance to sign him last year. When you look at what went down, I think that was considered. The Celtics talked about it. I think IT was very open to coming back. Here's what Ime Udoka said about that when asked about it. This is what Brian Robb tweeted a few months back. So Ime Udoka on Celtics passing on opportunity to sign IT4. He said point guard was never a position of need, and he's not wrong. I mean, yeah, IT would have been nice to have, but the Celtics certainly have some depth at point guard. They have more depth now after trading for Brogdon, but I think they could have used IT4 back then, but I certainly understand what the Celtics were thinking. But the question is, would Isaiah Thomas want to come back to Boston? And yes, I understand that, right now he's a free agent. He's been hopping around from team to team. Really, any team that calls him, he'd probably pick up the phone, right? But a lot of people believe that the Celtics kind of ruined Isaiah Thomas's career. That includes Jason Whitlock. Here's what he said back in 2018. So this is 4 years ago when IT's career started to kind of go downhill. Thomas spent most of last year playing through the hip injury on the advice of the Celtics medical staff. But after the season, Danny Ainge cited the injury as one of the reasons Boston traded him to Cleveland, where he spent the better part of the season rehabbing before being traded to Los Angeles. Clearly, IT yet to recover. The Boston Celtics ruined Isaiah Thomas's career. He's never going to get that money that he thought he was going to get as a potential max player. He played in Boston with an injured hip instead of sitting out and taking care of his body and career, and his career will never be the same. He's been kicked out of Cleveland, soon to be kicked out of LA, which he was, and he'll be looking for some sort of deal that ain't going to look anywhere close to the $20 million per. The Celtics ruined this guy's career. So I think a lot of people, when they hear IT4 to Boston rumors, are going to be like, well, does he want to come back? I don't know if he wants to come back because he did, get traded very unexpectedly, and I think it took a while for IT, and we watched the documentary series that he had on Facebook or whatever it was, but it took a while, I think, for him to get over that, but I think he's over it now, and I think he would jump at the chance to return to Boston. That's where the best years of his career were spent. He loved Boston. He loved the fan base, and really the only guy he's holding any grudge over is Danny Ainge. And I have news for you, IT. Danny Ainge ain't in Boston anymore. Thank goodness. He's in Utah trying to get 20 draft picks for Donovan Mitchell. Good luck with that, Danny Ainge. We got the right guy in charge right now, Brad Stevens. I'm not taking anything away from what Danny Ainge did. I mean, the guy drafted all those amazing players, was the GM on a championship team. So I'm grateful for Ainge, but I definitely think it was time to move on from him, put Brad Stevens in place as the GM. But again, the only guy he has any animosity over is Danny Ainge, who is in Utah. Gary Washburn chimed in on this. Because Isaiah Thomas was asked about the possibility of coming back to Boston. Isaiah Thomas is opening up about his desire to come back to Boston the past few years and the disappointment of it not happening. He wants to stick in Charlotte for the rest of the year. Gary Washburn tweeted that when the Hornets played the Celtics, and IT was asked about the possibility of one day returning to Boston. I want this to happen really, really badly. I want this to happen because, let's be honest, IT deserved better. We kind of did him dirty in a sense, and just the chance to kind of salvage that relationship, I would jump at it. And I think the Celtics could use him. Yeah, they have a lot of point guard depth right now with Pritchard, Brogdon, and Smart. Doesn't hurt to have a little bit more depth. Bring him in on a training camp deal. I'm not saying give him 1 year, 10 mil. I'm just saying sign him on a training camp deal, see what he can do, see what he would add to this team. But how cool would it be? Think about this for a second. After the trade, after that all went down in 17, if he returns to Boston this year and is a part of a championship team, I can see it right now, man. IT kissing the Celtics logo at center court, crying. I would love that for both the Celtics and IT. I think that'd be really, really cool. But we'll see. I hope Brad Stevens at least considers bringing IT4 back to Boston. I would love for that to happen.